What's up guys, welcome back to Unreal Dev Hub. In today's video we're going to be talking about Niagara effects and how to make glowing emissive particle systems. If you're just getting started with Niagara, this is going to be a great place to start. We're going to talk about a few of the key modules and how to get a particle system made from scratch. Alright, so in our content drawer, we're going to start by right-clicking, and we're going to create a new Niagara system. And it asks you to use a base asset. We're going to use the asset called hanging particulates. So type that into the text entry right here. And then we'll double-click this, and then we will say ns_glowing particles, and hit return. Now that we have this emitter, we'll double click and we'll see that there's already an emitter in here. It has a series of base modules. We're going to remove two of them. We're going to remove wind force. So I'll click it and say delete. I'll click aerodynamic drag and I'll say delete. So now over here in our viewport on the left, we'll see a series of glowing particles, not too interesting. If you're not seeing this update, what you're going to want to do is go up here in the top left and make sure real time is selected. So let's start making this a little more interesting. What we're going to do again is we're going to, in the end, have this particle system right here that we see in the viewport. So we're going to work towards that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by first changing the shape location, which is right now a box that is 400 units by 400 units by 256 tall. We're going to change this to a disk. So we're going to click this option here under shape primitive that says ring disk. I'll click this and I can see that right now what it's doing is it's filling only the edge. That is covered by this disk coverage slider here. So if I move it to the right, from 0 to 1, it'll change basically what value it is going from a complete circle to filling in a disk. So I'll keep it something like this, keep it simple, and I'm going to change my radius for my own system to 75. So now we can see them start to populate in this ring, but we want to have them sort of move upwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to add velocity. So I'm going to click under the particle spawn section, which is going to apply all these properties right when the particle is created. So I'm going to hit this plus right here to add a new module to this particle spawn group, and I'm going to type velocity. So the first suggested option for me is add velocity. I'll hit return. You can see automatically the particles are moving upwards. That's because if we go over here to the velocity details, the mode is linear, which is exactly what we want. And right now it is using a 50 unit Z up velocity. So I'm going to change this to, let's see, 150. Let's get crazy. So awesome. So now we have our particles moving up. What we're going to do now is let's actually just change our lifetime a little bit. So we're going to make it minimum 2 seconds, maximum 5 seconds. So right now they're lasting a really long time. We'll have them with a shorter lifetime so they last a little bit less time before they die. So lifetime is where you're going to set the lifetime of your particles. So that's right here under lifetime in initialize particle. Awesome, let's keep going. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the update section and we're going to click plus to add a new module. So that's right here. And we are going to add something called, let's see, we're going to do curl noise force. And we'll edit some of these in just a second, but I'm going to add that now. And we're also going to add a color node. So now we have all of the modules we'll need. Let's go in and make some adjustments. So I'm going to start with scale sprite size. It comes with this default curve. We're going to make things simple and just use one of these templates up here. We're going to use the linear ramp down, which basically goes from 1 to 0 over the lifetime of the particle. So if I scale this curve right down here by entering a float value into this entry here, we can see that when the particle spawns down here at the bottom, it's large, and when it dies up here at the top, it's small. So I'll make this even more dramatic. We can see a really thick, wide particle down here, and then it gets much smaller in diameter as it moves up. Awesome. Let's also scale color. So this is where we're going to be able to scale our emissive parameter. So emissive being how bright the particle is glowing. So what I'll do again is right now it's using this ramp in and out. I'm going to change it to this linear ramp down, which basically means in the beginning, the value will be the highest, and in the very end of the particle's life, it will be the lowest. So I'll multiply by 5 here. And actually, I realized I'm scaling the alpha right now. So I'm going to turn this off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to scale RGB. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to say float from curve. Or, I'm going to say vector from float. I'm going to click that. And then once I get this value, I'm going to click this caret right here and say float from curve. So right now what I've done is, because by default an RGB value is a vector 3, we basically just want to multiply the RGB value by a float, which is a single number instead of 3, you know, an RGB or an XYZ as a vector is. So what we did is we clicked this caret on the right here. So right now we see this is a vector 3, and we used a conversion of float from vector. Vector from float, which then gives us the ability to use a float. And then from here, we hit this caret and we say float from curve. So these are different ways of using the internal tools of inside Niagara to basically convert the values you're inputting. So now that I have vector from float from curve, we'll now see the same interface that we had down here with the alpha. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 15. And then what we're going to do is we also need a color to really start this, to see this take effect. What we can also do is let's go and drag our particle system into our world so we can start to see it. So I'm going to grab mine. I'm going to drop it right on my little pedestal here. And so now out here, we can really see the glowing effects of the particle system. So in the beginning down here, I'm going to put this on the side right here. We can see that it's extremely emissive in the bottom, and as it fades out, it becomes less and less bright. So if I want to make this unbelievably exaggerated for demonstration, if I hit 50, actually, you know what? Let's say 100. So I've now multiplied the RGB, which affects the emissive qualities of the material, by 100. So in the beginning, down here, it's just super, super, super bright. And up here, over time, it very quickly fades out. So I'm going to make this 5. Let's add some curl noise force, which is what's going to make the particles a little more wispy. And we're going to grab the curl noise force module. And then in the details up here, we can change some of these values. I'm going to change my strength to 50, and I'm going to change my frequency to 0.02. The lower the frequency is, the closer it is to 0, the more it's going to move in kind of like a wind-like pattern and be very wispy, almost like a flocking look. So lower frequency is going to give that effect. And then I'm going to pan the noise field. I'm going to give this a value of 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. This is basically going to allow the feel of the target to be moving as time goes on with the system. So that is awesome. And so now immediately we can see that out in our environment and in our editor preview over here, we can see this wispy flow of the particle source. So now the final thing to do is we're going to add color. We can either add color over here on the initialization of the particle, but what we're going to do is we're going to use a color update node, and what we're going to do is we're going to add with this caret right over here under color. So under particle update, color, grab this caret. We're going to use this top suggested thing, which is color from curve. What this is going to do is immediately show us this gradient from one color to the next, and this is a lifetime. So over the lifetime of the particle, we'll see right here it says normalized age. So this is when the particle is spawned right here, and then this is when the particle dies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, I'm going to make this red, and now we can see in the very beginning, we can see it is red, and in the end of the life of the particle, we can see that it's white. So in this situation, right now we have two colors, which this one we're using just to basically affect the emissive qualities of the material, and this one we're using to scale the RGB values. Let's just take one step, and I want to call this out, that if you go down to the sprite renderer, we'll see the material that is actually being used on the sprite. And if we click in here, it's using a particle color material node. This RGB is what's being pumped into the material itself. So here we can see that the particle color RGB goes through a series of nodes and then into the emissive color. That's what in the end this is getting sort of piped through. So again, we have created a simple particle material. This is utilizing a handful of very useful nodes: color, scale color, alpha overlife, velocity, shapes, and curl noise. These are a lot of super useful nodes that you'll be using in a lot of your particle systems. And if you found this video useful, stay tuned. I'll have a lot more Niagara particle systems tutorial, and follow and subscribe for more Unreal Engine 5 content and tutorials. Have a great day all.